Hi, it's Nancy welcoming you to Garden Scroll.
Today is December the 16th, but when I get this post on, it will be January the 21st, I believe, but it will be around that time, if not that time. And I wanted to tell you that I have been thinking about doing a little post on the prodigal son, and sometimes it's a little bit harder in the wintertime to find a post about gardening because there's not much in the garden but dead debris, and most of it has been brought inside. We still have Christmas decorations up because our Christmas hasn't really happened yet. But we're in the process of getting everything ready and enjoying all the things that God has given us to enjoy for this Christmas season. Hi, I hope you're enjoying it will be your new year by the time I get this on, but we've been enjoying going around and seeing our kids and family and loved ones, and I got this for my daughter for Christmas, or her birthday. They're kind of right together. So isn't it beautiful? It's a calathea plant. It has, I hope you can see that beautiful color in here. And then on the underside, it's just the dark purple, deep dark purple. It has a lot of color. Can you see the purple shining, or pink shining through here? And then it's just a beautiful plant. So of course I fell in love with it, but I also happen to have been in love with my daughter since before she was born, but mostly the day she was born is when I really started falling in love with her. But this is hers. So what I thought I would try, and we'll see if it'll work, but I'm going to try something. So I had my husband turn off the camera so I could put the plant down. But what I wanted to show you was I did clip off a couple of little leaves. I don't know if this will work, but I have looked on Google, and it can root from a leaf. So I clipped off these little leaves, and I dipped them in my rooting powder, and I'm going to put them in just this little pot. I'm going to use this. This is for cactus, palm, and citrus, and it's a fast draining formula. So these little new things that you use to start a root on, they oftentimes can't handle anything heavy, so I think this will work good for this. So I've got it in my little biodegradable pot, and I'll put a little tray underneath it too, and we'll just set it up. Be sure and set it somewhere you can keep a good eye on it. I'll probably move one of these little things that I've got rooting up here, and you can tell the roots are going strong, so that's a great thing. And I'll probably put it up here where I can see it every day, because sometimes these dry out a lot quicker than you would think they would, and I want to give this a really good opportunity. We'll see if it will root and become a beautiful plant like the one I just showed you. So this is another little Christmas gift I had. I gave one of these to my sister and my mom, and I love these. My husband got me one of these many years ago, and it was at least 3 foot tall, if not taller. And you know how bad I am with houseplants. I've told you. I am getting better, but I killed that beautiful little thing before the winter was over. It never even got to come outside. So hopefully this will be a different story. I know it may not be, but I'm hoping it will be. It does have a little bit of dark spots on it right now. I don't know if you can tell them. Actually, I can't tell them in this light, but it still looks very healthy, and so I think it has a good chance. I put its little decor on it. I love decorating these for the holidays because, you know, I just love Christmas and all the holidays. And outside in the garden, the wind is beginning to howl a bit, and we're getting ready for 2 cold days and then some extra cold days and possibly a snow in our near future. Have you ever heard a sermon about the elder brother? I have not. I have heard many sermons about the prodigal son, but I only remember one about our comparison to having a lot of the same characteristics as either one or the other of those brothers. So remember that story, Luke 15 in the King James Version. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided to them his living. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again, was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. It's a beautiful story of forgiveness and unconditional love, an example of our Heavenly Father's love. But I think there's another story of forgiveness and love in the Father's other or elder brother. Where was he during all the time his brother was sowing his wild oats? He was being a responsible son, doing all he could to help his father, and maybe even double work to try to make up for his brother's irresponsibility. And where was he on the day of the preparation of the feast for his brother? Luke 15:25. Now his elder brother was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Thy brother is come, and thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. I believe there was much excitement and happiness in the servant's voice, and that he expected the elder brother to share in it. But chapter 15 verse 28 says, And he was angry and would not go in. In many sermons that I've heard, this is where the elder brother becomes the villain. I have been told his attitude was worse than anything the prodigal son had done. I'm not sure where that saying came from, because the same verse 28 of chapter 15 also says, And he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father, I'm reading this, but therefore came his father out and entreated him. Perhaps it's easier to forgive a sinner who has gone away from Christ's teaching than to forgive a Christian who has made a mistake. I'm thinking of James 4:17. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Sometimes there are sins of omission. Can we stop thinking evil of a good man for not being equal to God or missing the boat some way by not being able to do all things at all times and never getting sick or tired or wanting to be validated for a work done or a stand taken for Christ? I remember a book by David Wilkerson called I'm Not Mad at God, telling about a time he could not understand letting a young child die and how he had to deal with it until he could give it to God and know that God always has even the things that we can never understand on this side of heaven. God understands, and someday we will. I remember the song I first heard sang by Jimmy Dean called You're Not Home Yet, with the lyrics, if you've got a couple of minutes, I'd like to tell you a story. It's a story about a preacher. Oh, I know there are lots of stories about a lot of preachers, but this story I want to tell you is about a protectoral preacher who went overseas, who went away to fight a war for God, and he fought long and he won lots of souls. But he grew old, and he was on a boat coming home, and just by chance on this same boat there was a so-called celebrity. It seems that when the boat docked, there were hundreds of people there to greet the celebrity, shake his hand, and praise him, and take his picture, and not one person there to greet the old preacher. There was a young fellow walked down, cast his eyes to the skies, and says, God, did you forget? And it seemed that a voice inside that old preacher said, no, son, I didn't forget, but you must remember, you're not home yet. You're not home, you're not home, you're not home yet. I can still hear my Lord's voice ringing. There'll be a crowd to greet you and a choir of angels to meet you. I didn't forget, but you're not home yet. So, we all have our moments when we just can't get it together and we just can't understand what God is doing. In hard times and times when we trust so hard and nothing seems to happen. But you know that God does have it all, and He does understand it all. But that doesn't make it easier when we're going through times that we need to figure out at least enough of what God's doing to be able to accept what He's doing and to go on living for Him. So in Luke 15, verse 29, he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And did the father say, well, you just sit out here and sulk, and when you are finished, go back in the fields, in the elements of the season, and finish the work I have come to expect of you, while I and your brother make merry? No. In Luke 15 and 31, he said, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. I believe that was all the elder brother needed to put the smile on his face that the before-mentioned servant had expected. his father had left the party to come out to him. He had told him that he knew he had divided to both his sons their portion of his goods. He let him know he didn't have anything that didn't belong to the son who had stayed and shouldered the responsibility. He let him know that he did know that his son was always there for him, always faithful. His father let him know there was nothing he did alone for his younger brother, but that he considered that they did it together, he and his elder brother, because it came from the assets of the elder brother. But he let him know this was something they should do together because his brother was dead and is alive again and was lost and is found. I have heard through the years that many young people felt they had to have a testimony of overcoming some terrible thing they did to be recognized as a Christian, but a few people commended them in that to simply remain faithful and avoid doing wrong as much as possible also took a great Christian strength. So I ask you, can we finally give some validation to the elder brother after all these years and realize he was not a villain, but merely a human?
Please be sure to like and to subscribe to the channel.